Hello, I'm Jackie Allison, an executive with the Management and Economic Society of CIM, and I'd like to welcome you today to our latest mentor interview. Today I have with me Avakash or Akoo Patel, who is CEO Managing Director of Humilis Pensar Associates and Summo Gradu Mines Corp. So welcome, Akoo. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Good to have you with us. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you for 10, 15, 20 minutes just to get to know you better and to allow those who are watching this to hear a bit about your career and also your background. So maybe we could start off with just hearing about what your schooling was like, what program you went through, and then we can move on to the career path.
Sure. So it's not very exciting. It was public school growing up. I grew up in Saskatchewan. Being from Saskatchewan, I went to the University of Regina, and that's where I got my engineering degree. It's in environmental systems engineering, which is really chemical and civil engineering, which took me into metallurgy and processing. And so after doing school, I went to work. My first job was at a gold mine in the Northwest Territories, as a metallurgist.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, how did you find that transition, getting into the workplace versus being in school for some years?
Well, I've worked all my life. I was a refugee from Uganda, and so I started working at the age of like 12, delivering papers and stuff like that. And I've been working since about 14 years of age. So I worked as a metallurgical technician at Lakefield before I finished my degree, and that's where I learned about mining and metallurgy and getting into mining. And I'd worked at a number of different jobs. I'd done the co-op program, so I'm sure a lot of students and people go through co-op, and that was really helpful in terms of not only getting into the workplace and getting a job after school. It was very hard. When I graduated, only 6 of us got jobs out of school out of Saskatchewan, so had to move around, and so I
Yeah.
had to go to the territories. It was the only place there was a
Um,
job for us. Many of my friends who are executive now went back to work on the farm for the first year or two
mhm.
when we graduated until they could get back into the industry on the technical
Wow. Well,
side.
that's
So
that's a good reality check because sometimes you enter the industry at the wrong point in the cycle. It can be
that's
really
it.
tough,
It
and then
was.
you have to think about what can you do to in the meantime until the cycle turns and the jobs come back because there are great jobs, but cyclicality is just a part of the business. So I totally
It
understand
is.
that. Yeah.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's something that once you've dealt with it for a while, I think that you get used to it and it doesn't affect you. But in the very beginning,
Mhm.
it's awing, it's terrifying in some
Yeah.
ways because you have a
Yeah.
hard time getting that first job. And
Yeah.
then we ran out of gold. It was a gold mine 300 miles north of Yellowknife, and we ran out of gold, and so we shut down. Everybody got laid off. So in my first job, like after university, I got laid off, off after 2 years, even though I was supposed to go to a sister mine, and I
Oh.
found a job in Ontario. And the day I got the layoff is the day I got the offer to go to the sister mine. So so I left that company. And it was really strange because I saw a lot of people weeping because they'd done their life at that particular
All
mine.
right.
So
Yes.
yeah, so it was really an educational experience right off
Hmm.
the bat,
Hmm.
that experience from the
Yes.
cyclic nature of mining
Yeah,
and
yeah, and how
remoteness.
important the mine is to the local community and the impact that a closure would have on, the employment rate
Absolutely.
in the town. So yeah, lots of things for mining to deal with and prepare for and try and communicate well because at the end of the day, we are a depleting industry. The resources
That's right. Yeah,
deplete. Of
that's
course, we
right.
try to replace them as best we can, but there are challenges with that, and they don't always come in time. So yeah, tough. It can be a tough business. So it's great that you did have the co-op and the placements,
Yeah.
and I guess for a student, learning to be in the workplace, learning to deal with people, having to perform. What were some of the takeaways you would say from that experience?
Well, I think from the co-op experience, I really learned obviously about teamwork and things that were very different than academia. Success, the social aspect of teamwork outside of just the technical aspect. I mean, from an engineering school place, there's quite a technical aspect to it, but the business aspect of mining was really highlighted during that co-op
Hmm.
experience, along with not only the teamwork but a sense of accomplishment and accomplishment not in an academic way.
Right. Yeah.
So contributing to a team to get some things done, that was very helpful in that in that experience, and being fit enough, I guess, when I hit the cycle low to go to the gold mine up north. I I had some skills I got to develop through that co-op program to
Mhm.
be allow me to integrate, because when you go into a co-op program, you don't know who you're going to be working with for the next
Right.
4 months, and you have some great mentors, and then you have some mentors that aren't so interested in teaching you, and
Right.
so going into that new environment, that program obviously helped me
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
some success in, and to this day I still have friends from all of those experiences, both
Mhm.
mentors and
Mhm.
peers, and I think the key thing of all of that was the ability of resiliency
Mhm.
was very important in our
Mhm.
industry, on the business side and on the technical side.
Right.
That
Yes.
that
Good
was a
point.
key driver, that
Mhm.
whatever happens, it's okay. We'll get through it, and
Yeah.
that really helps, I think.
Yeah, no, those are very, very important points. I think, first of all, that it is a business, and that is one of the big learnings. I think that when you leave academia, you realize that academics, no matter where you are working, it's probably going to be based on some bottom line, some
That's
target
right.
performance, and it's what is the business of what you're doing technically, and it's important, I think, to understand that it's a business, and if you can boost some of your skills around that, because at the end of the day you want to perform well in the business, not just technically, but understanding what are the drivers for the business itself. So it's great that you came away with that understanding, and of course how to interact with people, and the
Sure,
not just
exactly.
intelligence quota, but the emotional quota. How do you work properly in a team? And some of that can be quite challenging because your team members don't always work well in teams, and so you've got to
That's
sometimes make up for that. So
sure,
lots of
sure.
learning to be had on the job.
Mhm.
So that's great. So you've worked in metallurgy, and can you tell us a bit
Mhm.
about some of the other things you've done along the way?
Sure. So from that job, I got a job in Ontario, and there it was industrial minerals, from gold to industrial minerals. So the change of commodities was helpful in my long-term path of career. I didn't realize that at the time. A lot of it has to do with, I think, you don't know you're learning when you're learning, and you don't know who's mentoring you when you're mentoring, and it is a gift once you actually look back and go, wow, that person taught me a lot, or that experience really
Right.
contributed to me to understand the difference between gold and industrial minerals. I mean, they're so far apart.
Mhm.
And one was an operating role. The next one, we were building a $1.4 billion expansion in Ontario. And I got exposure to EPCM and project development, from studies into execution into construction. And those things, change from a pure metallurgy or technical standpoint into project development, and,
Right.
and what the capital implications are in project management. And again, an experience that I didn't plan on having. I kind of fell into these things and the harder I worked and the more successful I was, some people really helped do two things. I think one gave me an opportunity to put me in a stretch position, and two,
Right.
mentored me through both successes and failures.
Mm.
As you learn something, you don't always succeed, but I think that at least for me, I have gained so much more from the failures. So just trying something that I've never tried before, it doesn't matter if it's project management or starting a company or
Mhm.
whatever. Whenever I tried something that I didn't have the tools in the toolbox for, and I tried it and it didn't work out, I learned more. I took away more tools. When I was successful, I mean, it was nice, but there wasn't a long-term growth to that
Right.
experience. So I
Right.
encourage people to fail. A lot of the people that work for me, I'm like, go, if you fail, that's a positive thing, because
Yeah.
if you learn something from it, that's good for the business. It's good for us as a group. It's good for the company. It's good for the industry. But
Right.
if we sit, I don't think that the world's a dynamic place, and
Mhm.
and so is our industry, mining, and so is the business world. They're dynamic. And if you sit status quo, my experience has been you start to fall behind because
Mm.
everybody else is running. It doesn't matter if you're competing between countries, if you're peers, companies. The idea of constant improvement,
Yeah.
continuous improvement. I mean, they have the word for it,
Yeah.
but it also applies personally, not just
Mhm.
technically or business wise or through projects
Mhm.
or through KPIs. So I encourage people to stretch and try things they haven't, and if you fail, you should be happy because you learned something.
Yeah, no, that's it. People have to take risks in order
Yeah,
to grow. And as
absolutely.
you say, stretching yourself. Well, I'm not sure I can do it, but I'm going to give
That's
it a
it.
try. And I've got the best tools and support around me. And if I fail, as you say, there's always learning to be had. Even
100%.
those unpleasant working experiences, wherever they may be,
Absolutely.
whether it's location or people or the particular task, it's going to be a learning experience, and you take the benefit of that with you wherever you go. So it's it's a benefit
Certainly.
for life, as difficult as it might be at the time. So with all that busy work, have you found time to do anything else? I mean, you're here volunteering with MES now, which is
Yeah.
great to have you, because MES is based on volunteers. And so we always welcome anyone who's got time and energy and interest in the management and economic society. So we welcomed you recently as a
Thank you.
volunteer. Any interests and hobbies that you've had time to mix in along the way?
Absolutely. So the first thing is, I'm volunteer at CIM and MES because mining is, I mean, provided so much to me in term personally, professionally, financially, growth wise. The industry and the business both, I think are lovely. So there's a reason, and I also find often when I volunteer, I get more out of the volunteering experience than any organization or people I often am, helping. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
so, um, so that's why I do it. I've done a few things. I've done a lot of mentoring. I'm currently also a mentor with the International Women in Resources Mentorship Program,
Right.
and also I took about a year and a half away from work. I'd ran a construction company
Okay.
post that big expansion in Ontario. I had the opportunity to be a project manager for heavy industry construction, worked in mining and oil and gas,
Mhm.
and then I became a general manager of that. I left work altogether for a year and a half and did a self-financed volunteering in Africa and taught
Wow.
university in the bush for a year. And
Wow.
so it
Excellent.
was very fulfilling. Yeah. And it was in Uganda, and I hadn't been back since I was born, and I
Mhm,
had to leave.
mhm.
So it was an opportunity for me to go contribute to where I was born and see the
Yes,
place that I was born and things
indeed.
like that. So there's a lot of
Wonderful.
personal
Yeah.
fulfillment out of that. I was fortunate enough to do it, to have the financial resources to be able to do that for the year and a half. But a lot of people were concerned that, oh, you won't be able to get back into the workforce. You won't be able to get, and I'm sure many
Mhm,
people that have had kids or, parental leave, whether they're concerned if they leave for 1 or 2 years that they won't be able to come back. And through that experience, I can honestly say that whatever you choose to do, the industry is very welcoming. So if you've made a lot of good colleagues and if you've done a good job and worked really hard, then to take a year or 2 years and do, whether it be parental leave, personal things, volunteering, that
mhm,
that the industry will accept you back. Maybe you don't come back at the same level. I was fortunate; I got to come back at the same level, and I actually, to get back into mining, I went from a general manager of construction engineering to a senior process engineer back at an EPCM firm in the
right.
consulting. So I went from operations to construction
Mhm,
to engineering, and
mhm,
before I got into advisory onto the business side. So you never know where things are going to take you, but I wouldn't be afraid to make changes because we
right.
change. I think the big lesson for me has been my wants and needs when I got out of school was to get a job.
Mhm,
That was it. 5 years after that, then I start to pick and choose. Well, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then 10 years later, my family life was a bit more important to me. So we change as we go through and your priorities change, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be afraid.
true.
Mining and the business side of mining will offer opportunities for you to develop
Mhm.
and to make those pivots and changes, be it
Yes.
with the same organization for 30 years or 40 years, or by changing organizations. They're both available, in my opinion.
Yeah, good points. And the mining needs people now even more than before,
Absolutely.
because there's so
Yeah.
many retirees, retirements coming up. So yes, that's great. It's important for people to develop themselves and pay attention to what's important to them in their lives at various stages. So great point there. And some will see that as a risk, and you're saying don't worry about it too much. That
No.
a job
No.
will be there, and you might have to do something a little different, but truly there are many opportunities in mining, and certainly welcoming those who are first timers or
Absolutely.
returning to the industry.
That's
Definitely
it.
needed on all
And
fronts.
And to answer your earlier question,
Mhm.
so I like to play golf. I play
Okay.
rugby and hockey, a lot of
Uh,
sports
yeah.
in terms of the volunteering, of course, like that, and a motorcycle. So I have all sorts of outside interests that I enjoy, and I have a couple of dogs that take out everything else that I want to do. So they come first. I work for them basically, you know. So
Wonderful.
yeah, and there's the dogs, and then my wife, and then me. We don't have children, so
Right.
that's my
Okay.
family. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I guess any thoughts on anything you wanted to highlight that you would think a great takeaway? I mean, you've made a number of great points here, so we're not sure the takeaways. Anything in particular that was life changing for you, or that you
Well,
want to highlight for those who are
sure. I
relatively
think
new to the industry?
the fact that I came to Canada as a refugee, I think, really impacted the rest of my life in terms of my
Hmm.
outlook. A lot of things that I did were out of necessity because when you come as a refugee, you learn that look, yeah, I need a job. I saw whatever type of job. I don't choose that type of job. The best job I can get, I take, and I do the best work I can at it. And the
Hmm.
next step, the same. It wasn't until later in my career that I started to actually career plan, which now I look at the younger people, they're so much more sophisticated than I was. I'm like, oh, I got a job. That's great. That was it. And, and I see they're much more sophisticated. They have career plans. They have education plans, and so I think that that's great in terms of professional development. The thing that I would highlight is that sometimes you have to really assess what your personal needs are while you plan going forward instead of just a strict focus on the career. My one piece of advice is do what you love because the money will come. So
Hmm.
if you love the business side, do the business side. If you like the technical side, do the technical side. If you love it, you will be happy every day while you're doing it, and what will happen is you will succeed. And those things, that would be my one takeaway from that event in my life, that you just
Hmm.
keep, it's if you do what you like, you will work hard and you will succeed, you will learn,
Yeah,
you know.
and you'll have fun every day. So I think that takes a degree of self-awareness, but I think the industry does give you the opportunity to experiment
Absolutely.
a bit, figure out what the different roles are, go back to school if you have to, and build yourself over time. So good. I think that's really great advice. Would you say there are particular challenges that new entrants to the industry or students need to be aware of before they enter it, or now that
Yeah,
they're in
I think there are there's challenges. One thing I found is a challenge, which as of late, but it was my own fault, was mentoring. I didn't seek out mentorship
it?
early enough in my career. And I think I should have,
Okay.
because once I got mentorship, which I got naturally, but I didn't recognize it till
Mm.
it was late. And
Mhm.
now I have many mentors, and I'm very fortunate and very lucky. And I think that there will be all sorts of challenges. There'll be challenges with discrimination. There'll be challenges with cultural difference. There'll be ethical challenges, and they're very consequential. They're very difficult to negotiate. Especially the ethical ones, where
Mhm.
you're being squeezed and asked to do something, and you don't know is it the right thing to do or not, and the group that you work with, and the pressure
Right.
to perform in those positions is very,
Mhm.
very difficult. I mean,
Mhm.
and it can put your career or your state on the line. So those things are very challenging. And I think the big thing is to just stick to your value system, look inside, and
Right.
what's right. Everybody knows what they feel is right, the right thing to do. And
Yeah.
and don't worry. The people recognize that. So you will not be left out to dry. The
Mhm.
industry is full of great people that look
Mhm.
after you and also
Mhm.
understand those pressures on
Right.
the business side or the technical side or the business operations side. People understand the pressures people are under, and they will be there for you. So
Wow.
that's one thing
Wow.
that I didn't recognize earlier,
Yeah.
but for sure there are challenges all sorts of ways, but
Mhm.
it's okay. You will get through it. That would
Right.
be my one thing. But there are
Sure.
many
Yeah.
challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to stay true to yourself. So you've got to look inside and listen because you have to live with
Yeah.
yourself at the end of the day.
100%. And sharing. You,
Yeah.
you you need to find people you can confide in and share with,
Yeah.
mentors that can help guide you through
Right.
those ethical things or through discrimination. One thing,
Yeah.
when I mentor, there are situations where I speak to people, and they talk about experiences that they've had, and I'm like, oh, I've had that experience. I
Yeah, you're
understand.
not alone.
Or
That's
somebody else has gone through that exact same thing, and you thought that you were alone. You know, you're
right.
being picked on or bullied. All those things happen. It
Yeah.
happens in any workplace. It's not mining. It's not business.
Yes.
That happens all over the world in every environment.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah, yeah.
okay. You
The
have
lessons.
support. It's not okay that they're doing it, and this
Right.
is how you manage it. Like,
That's real life.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, and as you say, these lessons apply across the board, and no matter what you're doing, or in your personal life as much as in your work life too. So,
absolutely.
great,
Yeah.
great
So,
points you're
but you have
making.
support. The industry is
Yeah.
full of support.
Yes. Yeah, it's very collegial. I think that's one thing you learn the
Yes.
longer you've been in the business. I mean, yes, not everyone's a good player, but most people are, and they're
Yeah, that's right.
supportive. There's a network around you that sometimes you're not even aware of, and
That's
until you
it.
need to tap
Yeah,
into it, and then
exactly.
it's
That's what
great.
I found. Yeah, that you're like, wow, I didn't realize that I had all this support, and you do.
Very
So that's
interesting.
the
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
So, what's next for you then? Do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Continuing to grow the businesses, we're looking to make our first acquisition. So
Mhm.
Summo Gradu is. So we're plugging away on that front, which is exciting and fun to be
Mhm.
buying mines.
Yeah.
Shopping for projects is always an interesting and fun time. It's not always easy.
Right. Yes, you
And
have to be patient
so, yeah,
sometimes.
building mining companies, I think, is going to be the next thing, and helping support and starting to contribute more to the next generation of miners
Wonderful.
and business executives. I think that now contributing to others is getting to be more interesting than my own professional growth. I guess
Well, then
that's
many can benefit from that. That's great. And we
oh,
hope
thank you.
others have that same thought about how they can give back. They've got so much to give, and you just need a forum to share it sometimes. So
For
we try
sure.
and make that easy here. Okay, well, we've had lots of takeaways. Is there any one final thing you want to say before we wrap up here?
Oh, no, no, not really.
Yeah,
Good luck.
just
I
lots to
would say
do.
thank you, and for this opportunity, and to whomever watches this, enjoy yourself. Enjoy the experience while you have it. You may think living in the bush with too many mosquitoes is rough, or being in a business meeting with some bankers in New York is like too long. But enjoy it, because those flowers later on you look back and you go, oh, that was a wonderful experience
Mhm.
with the cultures, the traveling, all. You're like, oh, I'm traveling too much. It's great,
So many experiences and such a
That's right.
variety of exposures.
Experiences.
It is
That's
wonderful.
right.
It's a truly amazing and
Yeah.
unique business to be in.
Yeah,
And
I
so
would
it's
I would smell the flowers on your
on the
path, on
way.
your journey. That would be my last thing.
Okay, we'll take that as the final takeaway. Stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, that's
Excellent.
it.
Well, thank you so much, Akoo. It's been a pleasure
Thank you,
talking to you,
Jackie.
and I do wish you well in all you're
Pleasure mine.
doing.
Thank you so much.